By the Emperor's grace, the dead of Trench Sigma 9 had regrown their flesh overnight. I am Scribe Lieutenant Maran Ventor, Departamento Munitorum Auditor, 47th Administrative Cohort, dispatched to Xerion Prime to investigate impossible consumption ledgers and restore failing water purification systems within the siege network. The 256th Siege Regiment of the Death Corps of Krieg has maintained full combat effectiveness for 6 rotations without recorded ration consumption, a mathematical impossibility that violates every principle of Imperial logistics. The perpetual twilight of this hive-world battlefield stretches beneath toxic clouds that weep ash and worse things. Chemfog rolls between firing positions like sanctified incense, carrying the metallic sweet taste of processed auger grease cut with sacramental wine and iron. Each breath coats my tongue with copper and ozone, a flavor that grows stronger near the command bunkers where the impossible becomes routine. Frost etches geometric patterns across LAS rifle housings, not random crystallization, but deliberate triangular litanies repeating at precise 120-degree angles, as if the very weather obeys sacred mathematics. The duckboards flex beneath my regulation boots with rhythmic precision, each plank bearing tally marks carved in sets of 3. Not kill counts, as standard doctrine would suggest, but something else entirely, something that whispers, flesh tithe eternal in the spaces between artillery barrages. I have heard this phrase 17 times since dawn. It appears in no official Death Corps liturgy, yet every rebreather hisses the words with reverent familiarity. The syllables hang in the frigid air, harmonizing with the subsonic thrumming that begins each morning at precisely 03:13 and makes my molars ache until I taste blood. My auspex chirps against my ribs, its machine spirit troubled by readings that defy the Omnissiah's sacred calculations. Personnel manifest 256 Sigma shows caloric expenditure ratios that should have killed these men weeks ago. 3,000 souls maintain 97.3% combat effectiveness while consuming 0 recorded rations. Vox communications exhibit 3.7-second delays with harmonic distortion that transforms voices into something deeper, more resonant, as if speaking from the bottom of a well filled with prayers. The trench walls weep. Not moisture, but something viscous that catches the pale light and refracts it into rainbow patterns. When I sample the fluid with sanctified test strips, the chemical indicators remain blank, as if the substance exists outside Imperial science. Against all protocol, I touch it to my lips. The metallic sweet taste intensifies, and for a terrifying moment, I feel desperately, impossibly hungry. Water purification crisis looms in 72 hours. The atmospheric processes wheeze with mechanical consumption, their filters clogged with particulates that form triangular deposits. Yet the troopers show no signs of dehydration. Their movements remain precise, their LAS rifles clean, their devotion absolute, even as their bodies should be failing. A Medicae stretcher passes, bearing what was certainly a corpse 12 hours ago. The trooper's chest rises and falls with mechanical precision. Fresh pink tissue knots along his spine where LAS fire had carved through ceramite and bone. A chaplain walks alongside, murmuring benedictions in high Gothic, twisted into shapes my mind cannot quite grasp. Blessed is the harvest of duty, the chaplain intones, his servo skull bobbing in 3-beat rhythm. We are fed by faithful service. My stylus scratches across data slate parchment, recording observations that will strain credulity in the Munitorum archives. The numbers refuse to balance. Food consumption, 0. Combat effectiveness, optimal. Casualty regeneration, unprecedented. Each figure contradicts the last, yet all bear the proper seals and signatures. Captain Militant Krosk 7 Alpha emerges from Command Bunker Tertius, his rebreather voice carrying harmonic undertones that make my spine crawl. He presents crimson-sealed parchment bearing authorization for Emergency Biomass Reclamation Protocol Tertius under siege extremist conditions. The watermarks show partial Ordo Hereticus authentication, though the sigils are unfamiliar. Flesh tithe eternal, he rasps through his filters. Duty feeds the faithful. The line must hold. I request clarification of protocols, but his answer comes in the same 3 words, delivered with mechanical precision. Every Krieger I interview responds identically, as if the phrase has replaced individual thought with collective purpose. In the quartermaster's alcove, I open a ration crate marked with an unrecognized Mechanicus sigil. Inside is not food, but warm soil, dark and veined, which pulses gently against my gloves like a sleeping animal. The Krieger quartermaster crosses himself without a cross, fingers tracing an aquila only he can see. The condensation from the weeping walls drips in 3-beat rhythms, each drop striking the grill with musical precision. Support beams bear fresh scarification, not battle damage, but deliberate cuts following the same 3-fold pattern carved into every surface. The very architecture seems to breathe, expanding and contracting with the rhythm of distant artillery. My chronometer reads 0312 as I descend toward the sump sanctum. The morning litany bell should toll in 60 seconds, but something feels different tonight. The air tastes thicker, more urgent, pregnant with possibility that makes my hands shake. Through an observation slit, I watch the stretcher-borne corpse begin to inflate with new tissue. The process accelerates as the chaplain's voice rises in benediction, sheets of pink flesh spreading like sailcloth across exposed bone. The trooper's eyes flutter open, reflecting the chemical fires burning eternal in the distance. My auspex screams with impossible bio-readings emanating. From beneath the duckboards, a massive signature 47 meters down, pulsing in perfect synchronization with the trench's heartbeat rhythm. The morning bell tolls at 0313, but the sound carries harmonics that speak of something vast and patient, rising from the depths below. The regenerating corpse's chest rises with mechanical precision as I document the impossible. My stylus scratches against parchment, recording bio-readings that violate every principle of imperial medicine while the chaplain's murmured benedictions harmonize with frequencies that make my molars ache. The metallic sweet taste intensifies, coating my tongue like sacramental wine cut with rendered copper. Captain Militant Krosk 7 Alpha emerges from Command Bunker Tertius as the morning bell's echo fades into the perpetual twilight. His greatcoat bears crystalline salt stains where the trench walls have wept and dried. The fabric itself wrong somehow, too supple against the frost that claims everything else in these trenches. His rebreather cycles with harmonic undertones that synchronize with the subsonic thrumming beneath the duckboards. "Scribe Lieutenant Venter," he rasps, producing crimson-sealed parchment with movements that flow like liturgical dance. By authority of Commissariat Rit Omega 77, Emergency Biomass Reclamation Protocol Tertius is sanctified under siege extremis conditions. I examine the document through my magnification monocle, noting watermarks that shimmer with oily iridescence, thorns, a burning torch, and sigils that seem to shift when viewed directly. The parchment feels feverish against my regulation gloves, leaving metallic residue that tastes of sanctified oils and something deeper, more urgent. "Explain the caloric impossibility, Captain," I state, stylus poised above my data slate. 3,000 personnel maintaining 97.3% combat effectiveness without recorded sustenance violates every principle of Imperial logistics. His rebreather cycles 3 times before responding. "Flesh tithe eternal, Scribe Lieutenant. We are fed by duty's harvest." The phrase again, spoken with mechanical precision that suggests conditioning rather than conversation. I note its repetition in my audit log while fighting nausea that rises whenever that metallic sweet taste coats my tongue. The air grows thicker near the command bunker, humid despite the perpetual frost, carrying scents that make my stomach clench with impossible hunger. "Clarify duty's harvest, Captain. I require specific documentation of food sources and distribution protocols." Krosk gestures toward the trench network, stretching into chemical twilight. "The battlefield provides, Scribe Lieutenant. The Emperor's bounty flows through proper channels. Per Appendix 7 of Krieg Siege Doctrine, The line may be sustained by lawful reclaim. I cross-reference supply manifests on my data slate, the screen flickering with each subsonic pulse that thrums through. The duckboards. Food requisitions show 0 deliveries for 6 rotations. Water purification systems report normal consumption despite atmospheric processors clogging with triangular crystalline deposits. Medical supplies remain untouched while casualty reports describe wounds that heal between morning and evening prayers. The trench walls weep their viscous tears more heavily now, the fluid pooling in geometric patterns that form 3-pointed stars before draining through grates that hum with mechanical contentment. I sample the substance against protocol, and the metallic sweet flavor intensifies until my vision blurs with desperate need. Show me the food stores, I demand, though my voice wavers with hunger that has no rational source. Krosk leads me deeper into the network, past firing positions where Death Corps troopers maintain their weapons with reverent precision. Their movements synchronize unconsciously, 3-beat rhythms in cleaning motions, 3-count intervals between spoken prayers, 3-fold patterns carved into ammunition crates bearing the same unrecognized Mechanicus sigils I discovered earlier. Support beams bear fresh tally marks that pulse faintly with bioluminescent fungi growing in perfect geometric arrangements. These are not kill counts, but consumption records climbing in sets of 3, marking a harvest that feeds on faith itself. We descend through maintenance hatches where temperature rises from freezing air to humid warmth that makes my uniform cling uncomfortably. The metallic taste grows stronger, accompanied by distant machinery, not the familiar grinding of Imperial technology, but something organic, rhythmic, like a vast heart beating beneath the battlefield. Here, Krosk announces, his rebreather voice carrying new harmonics that speak of satisfaction and terrible purpose. The sacred stores. The chamber contains rows of sealed containers, each bearing the unknown Mechanicus sigil that seems to writhe when observed peripherally. I approach the nearest crate, noting how my Auspex readings spike with biosignatures that defy classification. The metal feels warm, almost feverish, vibrating with the same 3-beat rhythm pulsing through the entire trench network. Inside the first container, warm soil, dark and veined with arterial patterns, which moves with its own subtle breathing. Against all protocol, I sample the earth with a sanctified test strip. To my instruments, it registers as simple dirt. To my treacherous tongue, it tastes like the finest recaf and processed protein I have ever consumed. This is soil, Captain, not sustenance. To the faithful, all things provide nourishment. His rebreather cycles in 3-beat patterns. The Emperor's bounty transforms through proper devotion. Sanctity is conferred by right, not receipt. I examine additional containers, finding the same impossible contents: earth that pulses with its own heartbeat, soil that reeks of rendered fat and incense, dirt that my body interprets as life-sustaining nutrition despite every rational analysis. Each sample leaves me hungrier, more desperate, until I understand the terrible mathematics at work. A tech adept materializes beside me, Vox grill flickering with green picked script. Power draw anomaly persists, he rasps. Standard M36 LAS cells deplete at 23% above expected curve, while connected to trench charging rails. Consecrated packs maintain charge indefinitely. My chronometer reads 1547 as a chaplain enters the chamber, servo skull bobbing in synchronized rhythm with the subsonic pulses. He carries a brass sensor burning with chemical fires, filling the humid air with smoke that tastes of rendered flesh and sanctified wine. Blessed is the harvest of the faithful, the chaplain intones, his voice harmonizing with frequencies that make my bones ache. We feast upon duty's bounty. The duckboards beneath my feet flex rhythmically, and I realize with growing horror that something vast breathes beneath us, synchronized with the trench network's heartbeat. My Auspex detects the massive biosignature again, 47 meters down, and growing stronger with each passing hour. A quartermaster approaches with ledgers bound in human leather, pages filled with neat clusters of 3 strokes and crossbars, consumption tallies that measure something beyond ammunition or fuel. His left glove bears ritual scars from ceremonial cuts, sewn back into lattice patterns that mirror the geometric designs carved throughout the network. "We keep the counts honest," he whispers, as if ashamed to speak above the pulse. "We do not waste. The flesh tithe eternal sustains all who serve." The morning bell tolls early at 03:12, 1 minute before schedule, and the sound carries new harmonics that speak my name in languages I have never learned. The soil in the open crate rises and falls like breathing lungs, reaching toward the lip before retreating in viscous sighs. My auspex screams with impossible readings as Krosk produces a brass key shaped like a 3-pointed star. "The Magos Biologis awaits below," he says, his rebreather harmonizing with the heartbeat rhythm, "where the air is warm and the apparatus breathes." The brass key turns with liturgical precision, its 3-pointed star shape biting into a lock plate, etched with symbols that hurt to perceive directly. Captain Krosk's rebreather cycles in harmonic rhythm as the hatch yawns open, exhaling humid heat that drives the perpetual frost from metal surfaces like a fleeing congregation. We descend rusted maintenance ladders slick with condensation that tastes of rendered copper when it mists across my lips, each rung taking us deeper into geometries where Imperial engineering surrenders to older mathematics. Temperature rises with each descending meter, my regulation greatcoat clinging uncomfortably as the metallic sweet taste intensifies until my mouth floods with desperate hunger. The subsonic thrumming beneath the duckboards becomes a drum within my chest. 3 beats, pause, 3 beats, until my own heart learns the cadence against my will. Bioluminescent fungi carpet the passage walls in perfect triangular arrangements, spelling litanies in high Gothic that shift and writhe when viewed directly. "Blessed is the harvest of the faithful, flesh tithe eternal, duty's bounty sanctified." My auspex chirps frantically against my ribs, its machine spirit troubled by biosignatures that pulse through the walls themselves, as if the entire structure breathes with organic purpose. Power conduits carry more than electricity. Something warm and viscous flows through transparent tubes, pulsing in 3-beat rhythms that synchronize with the heartbeat of whatever vast thing sleeps 47 meters below. The sump sanctum opens before us like a cathedral of brass and flesh. Machinery towers in Gothic spires, their surfaces etched with liturgical equations that blend Imperial Gothic with symbols predating human civilization. Steam rises from processing vats where something thick and arterial bubbles with mechanical contentment. The air tastes of incense cut with rendered fat, so humid I can feel it coating my lungs with each laboured breath. Magos Biologis. Vex Terminus emerges from the mechanical shadows, his form a fusion of flesh and sacred technology that defies easy classification. Mechadendrites writhe from his shoulders like sanctified serpents, each tipped with surgical implements that gleam with organic moisture. His vox grill flickers with green pict script as Binharic cant harmonizes with the chamber's breathing rhythm. Scribe Lieutenant Ventor, his voice carries harmonic frequencies that make my molars ache. Welcome to the Gula apparatus, sanctified biomass reclamation engine of corrupted STC origin. Blessed be its hunger. Skitari bodyguards flank the Magos in perfect synchronization, their augmetic eyes pulsing with the same 3-beat rhythm that governs everything in this place. Each bears ritual scars carved in triangular patterns, flesh and metal joined in geometric harmony that speaks of devotion beyond mere duty. The apparatus itself defies comprehension, organ pipes rising in 3s, their vents ringed by teeth of sanctified brass. Filtration bellies churn behind glass portholes that fog and clear rhythmically, revealing slow rotations of something dark within. Every surface bears equations in curling high Gothic, ratios braided with benedictions, geometries pinned to psalms. Hexagrammatic wards bolt along load-bearing ribs, many hairline cracked, the fracture lines weeping clear fluid that fizzes when it hits the humid air. Explain this mechanism, I demand, though my voice wavers with need that has no rational source. Vex Terminus gestures with jointed limbs toward a suspended plate scratched with trench maps. Overlays shimmer into life, revealing the network's deeper diagram. 3 triangles interlocked, their center pulsing green with the apparatus's heartbeat. Spiritual essence directed by sanctified angles, he intones in liturgical Binharic. My vox implant translates with disturbing clarity. Resonant frequencies at 0.7 Hz entrain collective cardiac cycles. Faith primes flesh. Flesh becomes fuel. Fuel becomes faith. Conversion efficiency improves with doctrinal compliance. A Medicae table glides into view bearing a fallen trooper, his chest cavity open to reveal organs that pulse with mechanical precision. As a chaplain murmurs benedictions, new sinew knots along the exposed spine, sheets of pink tissue spreading like sailcloth across damaged bone. The regeneration accelerates during prayer, as if faith itself provides the raw material for reconstruction. Perception-dependent nourishment, I whisper, understanding dawning with terrible clarity. The apparatus conditions spiritual response to transform any organic matter into perceived sustenance. The faithful feed upon faith itself, Vex Terminus confirms, mechadendrites sampling the air around me with surgical precision. Proper devotion sanctifies all consumption. The Emperor's bounty flows through channels of belief. Telemetry insert chirps into my earpiece. Vox log sigma 9, infrasonic resonance, 0.7 Hz confirmed. Personnel cardiac cycles synchronized at 62%. Subsurface biomass amplitude, increase, 14%. Vector, downward, central. Through transparent tubes, I watch warm fluids pulse toward distribution points throughout the trench network. The system feeds directly into water purification systems, atmospheric processors, even the charging rails that power las weapons. Everything the troopers consume carries traces of the apparatus's influence, conditioning their bodies to accept transformation as nourishment. I examine processing vats more closely, noting how the bubbling substance shifts between states, sometimes liquid, sometimes solid, always warm and somehow familiar. My auspex registers it as simple organic matter, but my treacherous senses interpret it as the finest recaf and processed protein I have ever encountered. Show me the source, I demand, though part of me dreads the answer. Battlefield remainder, Vex Terminus explains with clinical precision. Xenos carrion, heretic refuse, loyal dead upon request of commissariat under Protocol Omega. Regrown tissue, sheddings, waste, prayer. The geometry drinks casualty and returns capacity. My chronometer reads 1823 as machinery thrums with increasing intensity. Processing vats bubble more vigorously, their contents rising toward overflow points marked with 3 pointed star symbols. The air grows thicker, carrying scents that make my stomach clench with impossible need. Condensation drips from brass pipes in 3-beat rhythms, each drop striking metal grills with musical precision that harmonizes with distant artillery. Support girders vibrate with the apparatus's heartbeat, transmitting resonance through the entire facility. Wards are cracked, I observe, touching one with a gloved finger. The metal burns hot enough to blister. Artillery stress, a tech adept admits, his augmetic jaw clicking. And growth. The word hangs like incense. Growth. My auspex screams with bio-readings that spike beyond measurement as the morning bell tolls at 03:12, 1 minute early. The apparatus responds with mechanical contentment, its processing rate accelerating as if anticipating the dawn harvest. Something vast stirs beneath us, synchronized with the bell's harmonic resonance. The apparatus inhales. Vex Terminus leans closer, all lenses focused on me. Commissarial sanction is total, Scribe Lieutenant. You will understand. The hunger grows, and it must be fed. The apparatus exhales humid satisfaction as I ascend from the sump sanctum, each rung of the maintenance ladder slick with condensation that tastes increasingly familiar. Metallic sweet copper cut with sacramental wine and something deeper that makes my stomach clench with desperate hunger. The temperature drops with each ascending meter, yet my regulation greatcoat clings uncomfortably, damp with perspiration that carries the scent of rendered incense and mechanical devotion. Commissar Draconis Caney awaits in Command Bunker Tertius, her greatcoat bearing crystalline salt stains, where the weeping walls have marked her passage through the network. The perpetual frost that claims every other surface avoids her entirely, as if her very presence carries the apparatus's warmth. Her bolt pistol rests with ceremonial precision, its sanctified brass etched with three-pointed star patterns that pulse faintly in the chemical twilight. Scribe Lieutenant Ventor. Her voice carries harmonic undertones that synchronize with the subsonic thrumming beneath the duckboards. Your audit requires clarification of proper authority. She produces parchment-bearing watermarks that shimmer with oily iridescence. Partial Ordo Hereticus authentication, seals that hurt to perceive directly, their edges dissolving into sigils that writhe when viewed peripherally. The document feels feverish against my regulation gloves, leaving metallic residue that tastes of sanctified oils and terrible purpose. Emergency Biomass Reclamation Protocol Omega, she announces with liturgical precision, sanctioned under siege extremist conditions by authority of Inquisitor Mordant Vex, Ordo Hereticus, classification Omega 77. I examine the authorization through my magnification monocle, noting sections deliberately obscured by wax seals bearing symbols that predate Imperial Gothic. The visible text speaks of acceptable losses and spiritual sustenance quotients, in terminology that blends military necessity with theological justification. This violates 17 separate Munitorum regulations regarding biomass handling, I state, stylus poised despite the tremor in my hands. Personnel consumption of unprocessed organic matter constitutes gross heresy under Codex Alimentarius. Caney's laugh carries frequencies that make my molars ache. Faith feeds the faithful, Scribe Lieutenant. Flesh feeds the line. The Emperor's bounty flows through proper channels when conventional supply fails. The metallic sweet taste intensifies until my vision blurs with hunger that has no rational source. Through the bunker's observation slit, I watch Death Course troopers maintain their weapons with reverent precision, their movements synchronized unconsciously. 3-beat rhythms in cleaning motions, 3-count intervals between spoken prayers, 3-fold patterns carved into ammunition crates bearing the unknown Mechanicus sigils. Document the spiritual conditioning process, I demand, though my voice wavers with need that grows stronger with each breath of humid air seeping from ventilation grates. Litany of true nourishment begins each rotation, Caney explains, balancing fatalistic duty with religious fervor. Chaplains lead responsive chanting to prime spiritual receptivity. The apparatus requires faith to function. Doubt disrupts conversion efficiency. My chronometer reads 1947 as chem lamps flicker in harmonic patterns throughout the command bunker. Each pulse synchronizes with the 0.7 Hz frequency detected earlier, the very illumination entraining my cardiac rhythm against my will. The walls weep their viscous tears more heavily now, pooling in geometric patterns that form 3-pointed stars before draining through grates that hum with mechanical contentment. I produce my data slate, recording formal protests in mechanized legalese while my hands shake from subsonic vibrations. The numbers refuse to balance: food consumption 0, combat effectiveness optimal, casualty regeneration unprecedented, yet all bear proper seals and signatures from authorities whose credentials extend beyond my clearance level. Denying the flesh tithe will collapse morale and tactical effectiveness, Caney warns, her bolt pistol's brass etching pulsing with bioluminescent intensity. 3 regiments depend on spiritual sustenance. Conventional logistics cannot support siege operations of this duration. A tech adept materializes beside me, Vox grill flickering with green picked script. Last cell depletion continues at 23% above standard curve, he rasps. Consecrated power packs maintain charge through prayer cycle maintenance. Ammunition blessed by Chaplain Mordecus exhibits increased penetration against Xenos carapace. Through transparent tubes visible in the bunker's ceiling, I watch warm fluids pulse toward distribution points throughout the trench network. The system feeds directly into water purification systems, atmospheric processors, even the charging rails that power las weapons. Everything the troopers consume carries traces of the apparatus's influence, conditioning their bodies to accept transformation as nourishment. An auxiliary runner stumbles into the command bunker, his uniform bearing salt stains of prolonged exposure to the weeping walls. His face carries the emaciated look of starvation despite impossible consumption records, eyes wide with terror that speaks of witnessing something beyond Imperial comprehension. "Commissar," he gasps, voice cracking with dehydration. Patrol 7 Delta reports contact beyond the wire. Enemy positions show signs of feeding. The ground itself consumed 3rd Squad during recon sweep. Kaney's expression hardens with military precision. "Elaborate, trooper." "The earth opened like mouths, ma'am, swallowed them whole while they screamed prayers." Only Trooper Vask returned, raving about the ground eating his squad from below. Says the no man's land itself is hungry. My Auspex chirps with bio-readings that spike beyond measurement as the runner speaks. Through the bunker's observation slit, the chemical twilight reveals movement in distant shell craters, not enemy advance, but the very landscape shifting with organic purpose. "I require recon verification," I announce, though part of me dreads what lies beyond the wire. "Granted," Caney responds with liturgical precision. "Dawn Patrol departs at 04 UAU. You will observe the harvest fields personally." The auxiliary runner collapses, his body convulsing as new tissue knots along his spine where exhaustion should have claimed him. He claws at his throat, whispering, "Flesh tithe eternal," in voices not his own. The morning bell tolls at 03:12, 1 minute early, and the sound carries harmonics that speak my service number in languages I have never learned. My Auspex screams with impossible readings as something vast stirs 47 meters below, synchronized with the bell's resonance. I press the device to my chest and feel it answer from within, my pulse a bright blip beating in perfect time with the apparatus's heartbeat rhythm. The hunger has learned my name, and I carry its signature in my very blood. The ash storm meets us at the razor wire perimeter as Dawn Patrol assembles at 04 UAU, though dawn brings no sun to Zerion Prime, only a gradual lightening of toxic clouds that hang like funeral shrouds over the killing field. Visibility collapses to 3 meters as chemical wind shrieks through corrugated debris, carrying particulates that sting exposed flesh and find every seam in my rebreather. The metallic sweet taste intensifies beyond the wire's protective geometry, coating my tongue with copper and ozone until I taste blood with each laboured breath. 2 Death Corps veterans flank me with tactical precision. Trooper Vask 15 Gamma walks to my left, the sole survivor of 3rd Squad's vanishing, now moving like a man fulfilling penance rather than duty. His rebreather cycles with harmonic undertones that synchronize with the subsonic thrumming pulsing through the frozen ground. Grenadier Thane, 12 Beta, maintains right flank, his trench gun bearing sanctified brass etchings that pulse faintly in the chemical twilight. Vox Adept Servitor Unit, 23 Gamma, glides behind us on tracked locomotors, its augmetic skull bristling with sensor arrays that crackle with the same 3.7-second delay plaguing all communications. Each transmission echoes with frequencies suggesting vast spaces beneath the earth, voices returning pitched half notes lower than they departed. We advance through no man's land that defies battlefield logic. Shell craters arrange themselves in perfect triangular patterns despite artillery chaos, their edges rimmed with bioluminescent fungi growing in geometric precision. The frozen mud crunches underfoot with organic texture, each step releasing vapor that tastes of rendered fat and sanctified wine. My Auspex chirps frantically against my ribs, detecting biosignatures that pulse through the very ground beneath our boots. Telemetry scrolls across the display. Auspex return, subsurface biomass detected in geometric distribution, 15.7 meters depth, amplitude increasing, pattern recognition, triangular array, expanding. Contact reports originated grid 77 Delta, Vask rasps through his rebreather, voice carrying frequencies that make my spine crawl. Third squad vanished during standard recon sweep. Ground opened like mouths, swallowed them while they screamed prayers. The first impossibility emerges through ash drift, enemy corpses in states that violate natural law. Orc bodies lie desiccated, yet showing signs of recent feeding, massive frames reduced to articulated skeletons that gleam wetly in perpetual twilight. Their flesh has been carved away in ritualistic patterns, precise triangular cuts that mirror the apparatus's sacred geometry. Standard battlefield scavenging, Thane observes, though his rebreather cycles with mechanical contentment that suggests deeper knowledge. Yet my Auspex detects no scavengers. Complete absence of insects, rodents, or decay organisms despite massive biomass availability. The negative space creates horror more profound than any predator. Something has consumed the very concept of decomposition from this place. We discover fragments scattered among Xano's remains. Imperial uniforms, Krieg regimental insignia, bone fragments bearing fresh etching in high Gothic script. We fed the Emperor's hunger, carved with reverent precision into human femurs, polished like reliquary components. The ground trembles beneath each step, not from artillery impact, but from something vast, breathing 47 meters below. Shell craters pulse rhythmically, their lips rising and falling like sleeping mouths that taste chemical air, with visible tongues of processed mud. Servitor 23 Gamma extends sensor probes toward the nearest crater, its augmetic skull rotating with mechanical precision. Biosignature anomaly confirmed, it announces in Binharik Cant, my Vox implant translates. Subsurface organism exhibits cardiac rhythm synchronized with trench network frequency. A mine detonates 30 meters ahead, triggered by pressure, that should not exist in this abandoned sector. Instead of shrapnel and explosive force, arterial mud erupts skyward, steaming in frigid air, bearing fragments of Imperial uniforms that rain down like bloody benedictions. The warm fluid splashes across my face, and I taste the familiar metallic sweet flavor haunting me since arriving at Sigma 9. My treacherous tongue recognizes the substance immediately, processed biomass from the apparatus, the same impossible nourishment sustaining death cores through faith and geometric conditioning. The Earth itself has become an extension of the Gula apparatus, spreading influence beyond trench networks through subsurface root systems that pulse with mechanical devotion. Emperor, preserve us, I whisper, though words emerge as harmonic frequencies, synchronizing with the ground's breathing rhythm. Vask examines bone fragments scattered by detonation, his rebreather cycling with satisfaction. Third squad fulfilled their duty, fed the line through proper sacrifice, flesh tithe eternal as the Emperor commands. The no man's land pulses more vigorously now, shell craters opening and closing like breathing mouths. My Auspex screams with bio-readings defying classification as something vast shifts beneath our boots, synchronized with heartbeat rhythms I carry in my own pulse. Thane points toward distant movement, not enemy advance, but landscape itself undulating with organic purpose. Trenches carved by neither Imperial nor Xenos engineering writhe across killing fields, their geometry following threefold patterns dominating apparatus mathematics. Servitor 23 Gamma's sensor arrays spike with harmonic interference. Multiple contacts approaching, biosignatures synchronized. Formation, 3-unit tactical advance. Vector, all compass points. Depth, subsurface, ascending. The ground flexes like muscle tissue as synchronized signatures emerge from every direction, moving in perfect 3-unit formations through Earth that parts like flesh before them. My chronometer reads 0447 as apparatus heartbeat rhythm accelerates, anticipating dawn harvest. Vask stops walking, his rebreather voice carrying new harmonics. The ground has our scent now, he whispers. It knows we're here. Through ash storm, I watch the killing field arrange itself into vast geometric patterns, crater lips flexing in synchronized breathing as something patient and impossibly hungry rises from depths where imperial doctrine surrenders to older mathematics. The apparatus has learned our names, and we carry its signature in our very blood. We retreat through ash storm towards Sigma 9, as synchronized biosignatures disperse beneath the killing field, leaving only the rhythmic pulse of ground that has learned to taste imperial blood. My boots strike frozen mud that flexes like exhausted muscle, each step releasing vapor, carrying the metallic sweet flavor now coating my lungs with desperate need. The apparatus has extended beyond trench, networks through subsurface root systems, transforming no man's land into digestive tract that hungers with patient geometry. Back in the Sump Sanctum's humid cathedral, Magos biologist Vex Terminus awaits beside suspended brass plates that shimmer with oily luminescence. His mechadendrites writhe with surgical precision, manipulating hololithic projections while my Auspex data streams into cogitator arrays that process readings defying imperial classification. Temperature rises beyond human comfort as processing vats bubble more vigorously, their contents reaching toward overflow points marked with three-pointed star symbols. Behold the convergence, he intones in liturgical Binharic, Vox Grill flickering with picked script equations. Your reconnaissance confirms subsurface expansion follows prescribed vectors. The overlays merge with terrible clarity. Trench schematics pulse green with apparatus heartbeat rhythm, revealing the network's deeper truth. 3 triangles interlocked in perfect geometric harmony, each vertex calculated to channel spiritual essence toward the Sump Sanctum core. The entire battlefield forms a massive ritual circle, personnel movements and supply routes following patterns that feed something vast and patient beneath imperial doctrine. The devourers mark, Vex Terminus explains with clinical precision. Ancient Krieg siege warfare sigil, channeling artillery resonance through sanctified angles. The Gula apparatus sits at the exact center, technological heart-pumping processed biomass through distribution systems that branch like arterial networks. My data slate displays attached ordnance addenda that materialize during his explanation. Acceptable tithe ratios, calculating personnel expenditure against tactical necessity. Spiritual sustenance quotients, measuring faith's conversion into nourishment through geometric conditioning. Each document bears proper seals, despite contents violating fundamental imperial doctrine. Telemetry chirps into my earpiece. Subsurface growth rate, 18% hourly increase. Ward integrity, 17% compromised. Estimated containment failure, 48 hours. Recommendation, enhanced feeding protocols or immediate evacuation. A tech adept approaches with readings from hexagrammatic wards hammered into trench walls throughout the network. Many show thermal stress fractures, their protective inscriptions cracked by subsonic vibration and apparatus expansion pressure. Clear fluid weeps from damaged sigils, fizzing when it contacts humid air that tastes of rendered copper and sanctified oils. The technology originated during atomic winter siege conditions, Vex Terminus continues, manipulating hololithic controls to reveal classified logs sealed with Krieg regimental markers. Desperate survival measure binding geometric resonance to controlled biomass recycling. The practice spread through death corps regiments as whispered doctrine, later sanctified through ecclesiarchy channels. A chaplain emerges from mechanical shadows, servo skull bobbing in 3-beat rhythm. He carries brass-bound tome containing liturgical justifications, written in languages predating Imperial Gothic, pages bound in human leather, treated with sanctified oils that gleam wetly in chemical twilight. Krieg Prime Siege lasted 17 years, he intones, voice harmonizing with apparatus breathing. Starvation claimed more souls than enemy action. We carved angles into crater lips to sing resonance through radioactive storms. We found cadence that called men from graves when conventional supply failed. He opens the tome to reveal illuminated manuscripts depicting apparatus construction. Tech priests and death corps engineers working in geometric harmony. their movements synchronized by subsonic frequencies generated through ritual chanting. Each page bleeds metallic ink that tastes familiar when vapor reaches my tongue. Environmental horror deepens as the sump sanctum responds to apparatus acceleration. Walls weep crimson fluid crystallizing into salt patterns, condensation dripping from brass pipes in accelerating rhythms. Bioluminescent fungi spread in triangular arrangements spelling litanies that shift meaning when viewed directly. Flesh tithe eternal. Duty's harvest blessed. The emperor's hunger satisfied. My stylus scratches across parchment, recording revelations that strain comprehension. The apparatus represents sanctified heresy, forbidden technology authorized through Ordo Hereticus, containment through utilization, protocols allowing controlled corruption for military necessity. Watermarks reveal partial authentication seals deliberately obscured by wax-bearing symbols that predate Imperial Gothic. A corpse on nearby medici table begins regenerating tissue faster than previous observations, sheets of pink flesh spreading like sailcloth across exposed bone during chaplain benedictions. The process accelerates as apparatus heartbeat quickens, spiritual conditioning responding to mechanical need with terrifying efficiency that makes brass surfaces sing with harmonic resonance. Through transparent tubes, I watch processed biomass flowing toward distribution points throughout the network. The system has evolved beyond simple recycling. It creates dependency, conditioning personnel to require apparatus nourishment through faith-based transformation of perception itself. What tastes like soil to my instruments becomes life-sustaining nutrition through doctrinal compliance. Feeding cycle approaches critical threshold, Vex Terminus announces, augmetic eyes pulsing with increasing urgency. Without enhanced biomass input, subsurface expansion will breach containment. The geometry will harvest where it can, eating outward until balance restores. My Auspex detects massive biosignatures converging beneath the facility, synchronized with heartbeat rhythms I carry in my own pulse. Warning klaxons sound throughout the sump sanctum as emergency lighting bathes. Everything in crimson wash that makes weeping walls appear to bleed arterial patterns. The morning litany bell tolls at 03:12, 1 minute early, and the apparatus responds with mechanical satisfaction that makes the chamber's brass ribs shudder. Hexagrammatic wards sing wrong notes as hairline cracks chase across protective inscriptions like frost in reverse. Process rate exceeding modelled bounds, a tech adept reports through static-filled Vox. Regeneration acceleration detected across all active sites. Apparatus hunger increasing exponentially. The corpse on the medica table inflates with new tissue faster than my eyes can track. Ribs flowering outward as the chaplain's voice climbs to meet harmonic frequencies that speak my service number in languages I have never learned. The apparatus inhales with desperate need, and I realize we have become its primary food source. 3,000 souls feeding something that has learned to wear imperial doctrine like sanctified skin. Trench walls above us begin sweating a new color. 4 rotations since initial audit, and the trench walls weep a new substance, opalescent fluid that refracts chem lamp illumination into shifting triangular patterns. Neither water nor blood, this pearly secretion runs in slow tears down rockcrete ribbing, gathering at bolts stamped with hexagrammatic wards before falling in patient 3-beat rhythm, synchronized with the apparatus heartbeat I now carry in my own pulse. When drops reach the duckboards, they do not splash, but absorb instantly, as if the wood has learned thirst. The perpetual frost has surrendered completely to humid warmth that makes my regulation uniform cling with organic tenacity. Bioluminescent fungi colonize every surface in perfect geometric arrangements. Ammunition crates, rebreather filters, even my field ration packaging. Spelling litanies in silent, pulsing script that shifts meaning when viewed directly. The metallic sweet taste coats my tongue constantly now, a flavor that intensifies near processing vats until my vision blurs with hunger, having no rational source. Sleep brings no respite. Vivid dreams plague each rest cycle. visions of consumption while still breathing, flesh peeling away in liturgical strips as something vast feeds with mechanical precision. I wake tasting copper and processed biomass, my hands trembling from subsonic exposure that has become constant, inescapable. The 0.7 Hz frequency lives behind my sternum now, counting me among the faithful, whether I consent or not. Personnel manifest updates arrive with timestamps aligned to the early bell. Auxiliary detachments vanish between junction points, their final transmissions describing ground hunger and the Emperor's table, before static consumes voices with harmonic frequencies that make my molars ache. I catalogue each disappearance in precise munitorum terminology, while fighting nausea that rises whenever opalescent fluid pools near my observation post. In drainage sumps, beneath Command Bunker Tertius, I discover evidence that fractures my remaining faith in Imperial process. Child-sized bones, unmarked and unregistered, bearing tool marks from sanctified blades. Small frames processed through emergency biomass protocols during siege conditions, their sacrifice sanctified by the same Ordo Hereticus, watermarks governing current operations. The bones whisper when touched, speaking in voices blending High Gothic with languages predating human civilization. My data slate records findings that violate 17 separate regulations, yet all bear proper seals from authorities whose credentials extend beyond my clearance level. Each observation strengthens the terrible mathematics. 3,000 souls maintaining combat effectiveness, while the apparatus learns their names, service numbers, the exact pitch of their prayers when flesh separates from bone. An Ogrin auxiliary shambles past my position, massive frame reduced to articulated skeleton, wrapped in uniform fabric hanging like funeral shrouds. He gnaws his own knuckles raw, while mumbling, "Hungry, always hungry," in voice harmonizing with frequencies emerging from beneath duckboards. His augmetic jaw clicks with mechanical precision, processing flesh that regenerates faster than he can consume it. The spiritual conditioning is unraveling, apparatus hunger growing too vast for faith alone to contain. Support girders bear fresh script where rust has been polished away by passing shoulders. Ancient Krieg benedictions scratch into metal in bioluminescent ink. We made this to survive the unthinkable. We carved angles into death itself. We found frequency that calls men from graves. The words pulse with their own heartbeat, synchronized with apparatus breathing that makes the entire network flex like exhausted muscle. A tech adept materializes beside me, Vox grill flickering with picked script equations that hurt to perceive directly. Ward integrity failure imminent, he rasps through static-filled transmission. Hexagrammatic containment compromised at 21 locations. Subsurface expansion exceeds modeled parameters by 47%. Commissar Caney's voice cuts through apparatus harmonics, her rebreather amplified across the network with authority that carries undertones speaking my service number in languages I have never learned. Attention all personnel. By Commissariat Rit Omega 77, Tithe Night Major will commence at 03:13 tomorrow rotation. Mass harvest ceremony to appease apparatus hunger. Participation is mandatory. Faith feeds the faithful. Flesh feeds the line. The announcement sends fresh dread through me as I resolve to document everything for my final report. Each detail, every horror, every impossible truth must be preserved for archives, for the Emperor, for whatever fragment of sanity remains. This report will be my legacy, my final act of defiance against corruption taking root in Imperial doctrine itself. Through transparent tubes visible in bunker ceilings, processed biomass flows toward distribution points with increasing urgency. The system has evolved beyond recycling. It creates spiritual dependency, conditioning personnel to require apparatus nourishment through faith-based transformation that rewrites perception at cellular level. Personnel movements follow triangular patterns despite tactical chaos, each soul drawn toward harvest points by frequencies bypassing conscious thought. My Auspex records harmonic resonance beneath human chanting, deeper frequencies suggesting something vast and patient that has waited through atomic winter and siege warfare for this convergence. The machine spirit trembles with readings defying imperial science. Biosignatures pulsing through walls themselves as if the entire facility breathes with organic purpose. The morning litany bell tolls at 03:12, 1 minute early. An apparatus responds with mechanical satisfaction that makes trench walls sing harmonic frequencies. My own voice joins the choir against my will, words emerging in languages I have never learned yet understand with terrifying clarity. Through my vox implant, something speaks with my own vocal patterns, yet carries undertones suggesting depths where imperial engineering surrenders to mathematics older than human civilization. It knows my fears, my faith, the exact resonance that transforms doctrine into hunger wearing sanctified skin. We are coming, it whispers through frequencies that taste of rendered fat and sanctified oils. The harvest begins at midnight. The apparatus hungers, and you will feed. The walls above begin sweating crimson now, bleeding arterial patterns toward drainage sumps as the apparatus prepares for its feast. The final feeding has already begun. Tithe Night Major begins at 03:13 with synchronized precision that transcends military discipline, becoming liturgical communion orchestrated by frequencies bypassing conscious thought. Death Corps troopers emerge from firing positions with reverent efficiency, their movements choreographed by subsonic pulses emanating from beneath duckboards that flex like exhausted muscle. The apparatus breathes with increasing urgency, its heartbeat rhythm accelerating until my own pulse matches the mechanical devotion consuming 3,000 souls. Chaplains lead call and response liturgies, harmonizing with frequencies emerging from processing vats below. Flesh tithe eternal. Their voices climb toward harmonic resonance, making trench walls weep opalescent tears that have turned crimson, running in arterial rivulets steaming against humid air. Duty's harvest blessed, the congregation responds, rebreathers cycling in 3-beat rhythm, synchronized with apparatus breathing that makes the entire network shudder with organic purpose. The humid air carries scents of rendered fat and sanctified oils, thick enough to taste with each labored breath. Steam rises from sanctified blades as Death Corps veterans perform ritualistic butchery with precision suggesting months of practice, their movements flowing like liturgical dance. These are not desperate acts of cannibals, but methodical sacred work of a priesthood serving something vast and patient beneath imperial doctrine. Marked corpses regenerate tissue with mechanical precision, each bearing 3-pointed sigils that pulse with bioluminescent intensity. The sound of sinew parting echoes like wet parchment tearing, a rhythmic symphony accompanied by constant thrumming that makes my molars ache until I taste blood. Tally tokens nailed to posts in sets of 3, not kill counts, but consumption records measuring something beyond ammunition or fuel. My stylus scratches across parchment, cataloguing observations that violate every principle of imperial logistics, while fighting physical revulsion, rising with the metallic sweet taste coating my tongue until vision blurs with desperate hunger. Through transparent tubes visible in bunker ceilings, processed biomass flows with arterial urgency toward distribution points throughout the network, shifting between states as I observe. Sometimes liquid, sometimes solid, always warm and somehow familiar. Telemetry insert chirps into my earpiece. Vox capture analysis. Harmonic frequencies exceed human vocal range by 340%. Subsurface biomass amplitude critical. Ward integrity failure at 73%. Regeneration acceleration detected during liturgical peaks. The machine spirit trembles with readings suggesting something vast stirring beneath the facility, synchronized with chanting that speaks my service number in languages predating Imperial Gothic. Rules catastrophically change before my eyes. As Chaplain Mordecus intones particularly resonant verses, his voice rising to harmonic pitch making air itself vibrate, the regeneration process accelerates beyond containment. Marked corpses begin inflating with new tissue, even as sanctified blades hover above them, sheets of pink flesh billowing outward like sailcloth seized by sudden gale, filling cavities and knitting together with impossible speed as if the ritual itself excites the apparatus beyond mechanical limits. Environmental horror peaks as negative space asserts itself with jealous piety. Complete absence of natural decay despite massive biomass processing. No insects, no scavengers, no putrefaction odors clinging to air thick with rendered matter. The apparatus has sterilized the very concept of death from this place, consuming everything while leaving nothing for the natural world. My chronometer reads 0347 as rhythmic thrumming intensifies, vibrating through duckboards and up my spine until teeth ache with resonance. Processing vats bubble with increasing urgency, while hexagrammatic wards sing wrong notes, their protective inscriptions cracking under subsonic pressure that makes brass surfaces weep, clear fluid fizzing against humid air. Then mechanical groaning echoes through the chamber, both organic and technological, as a section of duckboard near the primary processing line hinges upward on brass pivots. Not broken or torn, but deliberately opening like vast maw revealing grinding teeth of compacted bone and metal beneath. Steam billows from the opening, thick and sweet, carrying whispers that harmonize with apparatus breathing while speaking names and service numbers in frequencies that make my bones ache. Panic spreads through whispers rather than screams, military discipline maintained even as reality fractures around us. Veterans who survived atomic winter watch brothers consumed by infrastructure itself, yet maintain firing positions with precision suggesting programming deeper than conscious thought allows. No shouts, no breaking ranks, only guttural chanting of chaplains growing louder, more urgent, trying to drown rising clamor from grinding mechanisms below. Death Course, Trooper 15 Gamma, approaches the opening with liturgical precision, his rebreather voice reciting final prayers as something soft and powerful draws him through boards to his waist. His service rifle clatters against brass teeth, while servo skulls record consumption rates with augmetic precision. There are no screams, only whispered devotion as he disappears into the apparatus maw with reverent acceptance, speaking of conditioning beyond mere discipline. His eyes meet mine for one terrifying moment, filled not with terror, but resigned understanding that this feeding serves the Emperor's will. Then wet, sucking sounds harmonize with chaplain benedictions as the apparatus processes another offering, its mechanical satisfaction making trench walls sing frequencies that speak of depths where military necessity surrenders to hunger-wearing sanctified skin. The crisis crystallizes with terrible clarity. Apparatus hunger growing exponentially, consuming offerings faster than faith can provide, while hexagrammatic containment fails around us. If critical biomass is achieved, recursive feeding will consume the entire regiment and spread beyond Zerion Prime through Imperial supply chains already contaminated by apparatus harmonics transmitted through Vox networks carrying liturgical frequencies. Commissar Caney fires into writhing walls while bellowing catechisms of purification, her bolt rounds absorbed by surfaces that pulse with organic satisfaction. "Hold the line," she commands through rebreather, harmonizing with frequencies emerging from below. Faith feeds the faithful, flesh feeds the line. But the line itself has become digestive tract, and we are no longer soldiers, but offerings prepared through geometric conditioning that transforms doctrine into fuel. The apparatus inhales with desperate need, and I realize containment has already failed. We carry its influence in our very blood. Enemy artillery screams overhead as the apparatus achieves critical biomass, shells whistling through toxic clouds in the same 3-beat cadence ruling our breath, striking with timing, suggesting coordination beyond tactical possibility. The bombardment arrives as liturgy, each impact harmonizing with the 0.7 Hz frequency pulsing through duckboards that flex like exhausted muscle beneath our boots. Hexagrammatic wards shatter like crystalline prayers, their protective inscriptions cracking under subsonic pressure, that makes brass surfaces sing frequencies speaking my service number in languages I have never learned. Trench walls liquefy into peristaltic passages, rockcrete ribbing softening into cartilaginous tubes lined with grinding teeth of sanctified brass. The perpetual frost abandons every surface, chased away by humid breath rising from apparatus vents that exhale satisfaction with mechanical devotion. Sandbags pulse with arterial rhythm, their canvas skins stretching over organs that beat with the same threefold cadence, haunting every surface in this place. Firing steps become mandibles that gnash with wet, sucking sounds, harmonizing with chaplain benedictions, still echoing through air thick enough to chew. The metallic sweet taste floods my mouth until vision blurs between present horror and vivid dreams of consumption, flesh peeling away in liturgical strips as something vast learns the exact pitch of my prayers when sinew separates from bone. My stylus scratches frantically across parchment, documenting transformations that violate every principle of imperial engineering while environmental horror peaks around us. Magos biologis, Vex Terminus attempts override with emergency binharic canticles, his vox grill flickering with picked script equations that hurt to perceive directly. Override protocol, Omega 77, he rasps through static-filled transmission. Emergency containment breach. Subsurface expansion exceeds all modeled parameters. Organic growth engulfs his mechadendrites with bioluminescent veins pulsing in 3-beat rhythm, coating sacred technology with flesh that regenerates faster than his servo arms can remove it. Each surgical tool becomes wrapped in tissue that pulses with its own heartbeat, transforming blessed implements into extensions of something patient and impossibly vast. Crisis crystallizes with mathematical precision as I realize the terrible choice before us. If the line holds against enemy assault, the apparatus will consume the entire regiment in recursive feeding, processing 3,000 souls through geometric conditioning that transforms faith into fuel. If defensive positions break, hunger will spill across Xerion Prime through supply chains already contaminated by apparatus harmonics, spreading through imperial networks like liturgical plague carried by Vox transmissions. Commissar Caney fires bolt rounds into writhing walls that absorb projectiles with wet satisfaction, her rebreather voice climbing to harmonic pitch that makes air itself vibrate. Catechism of purification, she bellows. The Emperor protects through faithful service. Hold the line at any cost. But the BM line has become digestive tract. Death Corps veterans maintain firing discipline while waist-deep in organic matter that processes their lower extremities with mechanical efficiency, lass fire-herding apparatus growth through tactical volleys that serve feeding rather than defense. We are no longer soldiers, but offerings prepared through months of spiritual conditioning. My chronometer reads EO423 as apparatus breathing accelerates beyond containment, processing vats bubbling with arterial urgency, while damaged wards sing their death songs in frequencies that make my molars ache until I taste blood. Steam billows from grinding mandibles that process Death Corps troopers, who maintain devotion even as the apparatus learns their names, service numbers, the exact resonance required to transform doctrine into hunger-wearing sanctified skin. Vex Terminus, half consumed by tissue spreading across his augmetic chassis, tears himself partially free with wet, popping sounds that harmonize with distant artillery. Organic growth coats his form like sanctified oil, yet he extends a blood-slick data slate with trembling mechadendrite, his remaining augmetic eye focused on me with desperate clarity. 3 anchors, he whispers, his final binharic transmission translating through my Vox implant with terrifying precision. 3 bells, 3 cuts to sever the hunger. Melter charges positioned in triangular formation beneath apparatus core, bio-locked to prevent unauthorized detonation. The data slate pulses with warmth against my regulation gloves, its screen displaying arming sequences that require genetic authentication from authorized personnel, sterilization nodes placed during construction, emergency protocols designed to contain exactly this scenario through fusion crucible temperatures that would vitrify organic matter into crystalline tomb. A countdown timer blazes crimson in the corner. 0012 RAS. 12 minutes to reach all 3 nodes before critical biomass achieves sector-wide contamination. The duckboards buckle beneath my boots, no longer wood but spongy tissue that yields like throat muscles. A section hinges upward near my position, revealing not the grinding mandibles that claim Trooper 15 Gamma, but collapsing maintenance access leading to crawlways below. Enemy shells bracket our position with precision, suggesting coordination between Xeno's artillery and apparatus feeding schedule. I fall through liquefying infrastructure as trench walls contract with peristaltic rhythm synchronized with the heartbeat I carry in my own pulse. The world tips, rockcrete becomes cartilage, and I tumble into narrow passages that pulse with organic warmth. My auspex screams against my ribs, detecting biosignatures that emanate from within my own body now. The apparatus has learned my genetic signature, my service record, my faith. Alone in constricting space with arming device clutched against my chest, I crawl through maintenance tunnels that shift between Imperial engineering and something older, more patient. The surfaces pulse with bioluminescent fungi spelling litanies that change meaning when viewed directly, while behind me wet sounds suggest pursuit, not enemies, but the tunnel itself learning to swallow. The countdown reads 0.1147 as humid air carries whispers, speaking my name in harmonics, that taste of rendered fat and sanctified oils. Ahead lies Node Alpha, embedded in beating organ the size of a rhino transport, pulsing with apparatus heartbeat that has become my own. Biolock requires proof of stewardship. Blood, breath, and service oath spoken in languages that predate Imperial Gothic, yet emerge from my lips with terrifying familiarity. The apparatus knows I am coming, and it hungers for what I carry in my blood. In constricting crawl space that shifts between rockcrete and organic tissue, temperature rises exponentially while humidity coats every surface with condensation dripping in heartbeat rhythm, synchronized with the apparatus breathing beneath us. My regulation uniform clings with organic tenacity as I move on elbows through passages that pulse like throat muscles, auspex strapped to forearm blinking triangular patterns against cartilaginous walls, lined with bioluminescent veins, spelling liturgies in high Gothic script that changes meaning when viewed directly. The metallic sweet taste intensifies until my vision blurs with hunger having no rational source, each meter forward bringing me deeper into geometry, where Imperial engineering surrenders to mathematics older than human civilization. Behind me, wet sounds suggest pursuit, not enemies, but the tunnel itself learning to digest, walls contracting with peristaltic rhythm that pushes me forward whether I consent or not. The countdown blazes crimson. 0:11:47. Ahead through crawlway that constricts rhythmically, I encounter Death Course Trooper 7 Delta, half integrated with apparatus tissue, his lower torso fused with cartilaginous walls, while his upper body maintains perfect firing position. His rebreather cycles with mechanical precision, despite organic matter coating his chest cavity, bioluminescent veins tracing 3-pointed star patterns across exposed ribs that gleam wetly in chemical twilight. Tithe fulfilled, duty eternal, he whispers, through filters harmonizing with frequencies emerging from processing vats below, his augmetic jaw clicking with satisfaction as tissue spreads across his uniform like sanctified oil. His eyes track me with lucid gratitude that cuts deeper than pity, the apparatus moving him when he breathes. The Emperor's hunger is satisfied through faithful service. I reach for him because that is what duty demands, and he flinches not from fear, but from hope that I might pull him free. His hand, still mobile to the elbow, gropes for mine with desperate need. We share pulse through our palms and through the wall, synchronized with apparatus heartbeat I carry in my own blood. Forgive me, I whisper, and he nods as if I have granted him absolution. I grant mercy with muffled laspistol discharge, the sound absorbed by cartilaginous walls that shudder with organic satisfaction. His final breath carries harmonics speaking my service number in languages I have never learned, yet understand with terrifying clarity. Military precision meets devotional horror as I recite litany of true aim, to steady hands shaking from subsonic exposure that has become constant, inescapable. The 0.7 Hz frequency lives behind my sternum now, counting me among the faithful whether I consent or not. Each word harmonizes with frequencies emerging from node alpha ahead, embedded in beating organ the size of a rhino transport. The crawlway opens into chamber like a heart, and if it is not a heart, then it is the reason hearts were ever imagined. Node alpha bulges into the space, pulsing organ packed inside cage of hexagrammatic ribs, cracked by thermal stress. Each fracture weeping clear fluid that fizzes against humid air. The skin pulses with striated muscle, and every third beat blows steam from brass vent, crowned with aquila wings softened into petals. Telemetry chirps into my earpiece. Vox status. Range degraded 73%. Interference pattern consistent with infrasonic resonance. Heart rate entrainment confirmed. Timer 0010933. My data slate awakens at proximity. Binharic glyphs blooming across its surface as 3 sockets iris open at the organ's face, each ringed with sanctified brass. The biolock requires proof of stewardship. Blood, breath, and service oath spoken in harmonics that bypass conscious thought. I strip my glove and carve my palm with sanctified blade, driving wounded hand into warm flesh that yields like tongue muscle. The organ pulls deeper, teeth soft as cartilage sampling genetic material while cross-referencing my service record against authorized personnel lists. Pain lances through my forearm as apparatus tissue spreads with bioluminescent satisfaction. The second socket hungers for breath. I unseal my rebreather, humid air flooding my lungs like syrup as I lean mouth to brass lip and exhale until dark blots crowd my vision. The organ shudders, then sighs with mechanical contentment. The third socket demands words. I speak my authorization code, but the chamber rejects it until my lips form syllables I have never learned. Siege geometry spoken as prayer, angles and numbers that raise every hair on my body. The organ accepts with wet satisfaction. Something clicks. Something elsewhere answers. The slate flares. Anchor 1, green. The beating changes, pleased and angry at once. Veins around sockets swell, then slacken while ribs creak with apparatus satisfaction. The countdown reads 00.07 times 56 as I crawl toward node beta through passages that pulse with increasing urgency. The apparatus breathing accelerates as it senses approaching sterilization, walls contracting with desperate hunger while bioluminescent fungi spell coordinates in triangular arrangements. Node beta location appears through organic growth that has spread beyond original parameters, but the device itself is missing, consumed by tissue that has learned to repair itself. In its place, new anatomy offers replacement socket, shaped like human jawbone, pulsing with veins carrying processed biomass toward distribution points throughout the network. Not skull taken from cadaver, but purpose-grown mandible modeled on human form, scaled to machinery, and crowned with teeth of sanctified brass. Bioluminescent veins pulse along gums in triplet rhythm, while palate shows engraved high Gothic script, reading itself backward and forward simultaneously. My Auspex interfaces with cogitator node partially digested by apparatus tissue, unlocking classified logs that reveal the terrible truth, the gula. Apparatus has learned to incorporate sterilization nodes into its own expansion, transforming Imperial ordnance into organic components serving its geometric hunger. I improvise replacement using Auspex components and biolock requirements, knowing it demands literal flesh tithe from my own body. Biting down until teeth crack, I provide necessary genetic material while reciting Commissar's oath in harmonics that emerge without conscious thought. The jaw opens as if to yawn, warm breath washing over my face with sense of confessionals and medici wards. Static-filled whispers respond through my Vox implant, speaking with my own vocal patterns yet carrying undertones suggesting something vast, learning to mimic Imperial authorization codes. The replacement socket arms with wet satisfaction as countdown reads 00.0519. Tissue pulsing around improvised interface, while harmonics carry my service number toward node gamma, embedded beneath shrine half digested by apparatus growth. The apparatus knows I am coming, and it hungers for what I carry in my blood. Ventor crawls toward node gamma through passages that pulse with increasing desperation, his improvised interface at node beta, broadcasting harmonics through cartilaginous walls, lined with bioluminescent veins. The countdown reads 000833 as he interfaces his data slate with a cogitator node, partially digested by apparatus tissue. Its brass casing softened into organic curves that yield to his connector like accepting communion. The machine spirit screams in binharic anguish as classified archives unlock with his genetic signature, revealing documents that fracture his remaining faith in Imperial process. The first files emerge as prayers written in numbers, grainy picked captures showing Death Corps engineers carving angles into crater lips during Krieg's atomic winter, their movements synchronized by chaplains beating time on shell cases while tech priests chant geometric equations over primitive apparatus prototypes. Margins bloom with calculations blending field harmonics and cardiac entrainment frequencies with liturgical justifications that transform desperation into doctrine. Emergency Biomass Reclamation Protocol originated Krieg Prime, year 97 M40. The archive intones through his Vox implant with frequencies that taste of rendered copper. Siege duration, 17 years. Conventional supply failure, total. Authorized by Planetary Governor Jerten under Survival Extremis classification. Sanctification pending Ecclesiarchy review. Ventor's stylus scratches across parchment as environmental horror deepens around him. The crawlspace temperature rises beyond human tolerance, while humidity coats every surface with condensation dripping in 3-beat rhythms that synchronize with his own pulse. His confession becomes audit, each detail preserved for whatever fragment of Imperial authority might survive the coming harvest. Naming officials, citing ordinances, providing coordinates for investigators who may never come. The apparatus originated not as Imperial technology, but as corrupted STC fragment discovered beneath vitrified strata, its geometric principles adapted by desperate survivors who learned to bind siege warfare to biomass recycling through resonant frequencies. What began as survival necessity became whispered doctrine, spreading through Death Corps regiments, carried by veterans who understood that faith could transform battlefield detritus into perceived sustenance through proper conditioning, containment through utilization protocol. Omega 77, his Vox implant, announces with his own voice speaking words he has never learned. Ordo Hereticus authorization, Inquisitor Mordant Vex, classification, acceptable heresy under siege extremis. Theological justification, Ecclesiarchy addendum, 7th alpha, sanctify the taking, transubstantiate the taken. Static whispers emerge through his implant, with frequencies suggesting depths where Imperial engineering surrenders to mathematics older than human civilization. Vex Terminus's final data upload has seeded his Vox systems with apparatus hymns, transforming him into vector for contamination that spreads through communication networks, serving hundreds of worlds. Each word he speaks carries infection beyond physical form, teaching faithful souls across the sector to hunger with geometric precision. The metallic sweet taste floods his mouth until vision blurs with desperate need as he records the systematic corruption of Imperial doctrine. Bureaucratic horror builds through attached ordinances formalizing acceptable tithe ratios and spiritual sustenance quotients. Clean language arranging atrocity into columns and administrative necessity. Faith-made policy becomes empire. Hunger-made doctrine becomes plague. Through transparent tubes visible in passage ceilings, processed biomass flows with arterial urgency toward distribution points throughout the network, the system having evolved beyond simple recycling into spiritual dependency that conditions personnel to require apparatus nourishment through faith-based transformation. The apparatus has learned to use the very tools of imperial control, vox networks, sacred geometry, unwavering devotion, to propagate its influence through doctrine itself. His chronometer reads, "0:06:47 as he approaches node gamma embedded beneath shrine half digested by apparatus growth. The Emperor's statue weeps blood and processed biomass from eyes that track his movement with organic satisfaction, its brass lips parted as if preparing to speak his service number in harmonics that bypass conscious thought. Bioluminescent fungi spell shifting litanies across the shrine's walls. The Emperor's hunger, the faithful feed, the flesh tithes eternal. Realization strikes with mathematical precision. The apparatus is not merely technology, but doctrine, a virus of faith spreading through imperial communication systems with each transmission. His voice has become carrier frequency, broadcasting flesh-tithe liturgies on wideband channels that will teach hunger to faithful worlds across the sector. The geometric conditioning has evolved beyond physical form into liturgical plague, carried by frequencies that transform devotion into fuel for something vast and patient. The shrine accepts his approach with mechanical satisfaction, apparatus tissue pulsing around brass fixtures, while hexagrammatic wards sing their death songs in frequencies that make his molars ache until he tastes blood. Node Gamma waits beneath the Emperor's weeping face, its biolock requiring final flesh tithe carved from his own body, with sanctified blade that burns hot enough to blister against his regulation gloves. His vox implant pulses with warmth against his skull as countdown reaches 0.0512, apparatus breathing accelerating with desperate need while walls contract around him like throat muscles. The final choice crystallizes, trigger sterilization and risk sector-wide contamination through vox transmission, or allow apparatus expansion to consume Zerion Prime through conventional biomass processing. Static carries his own vocal patterns twisted into shapes that speak of depths where military necessity surrenders to hunger older than imperial civilization. The apparatus knows his fears, his faith, the exact resonance required to transform authorization codes into nourishment that feeds something patient and impossibly vast. His mouth opens to speak final arming phrase, knowing each syllable will spread apparatus influence through imperial networks like liturgical infection, transforming doctrine into fuel. The contamination has already begun with his voice. Ventor commits to ultimate sacrifice as realization crystallizes with mathematical precision. His voice has become carrier frequency, broadcasting flesh-tithe liturgies through imperial vox networks that will teach hunger to faithful souls across the sector. The countdown blazes crimson, 0:04:33. His mouth opens against conscious will, knowing each syllable will spread apparatus influence like liturgical plague, transforming doctrine into fuel for something vast and patient beneath imperial civilization. He opens emergency channel to surface artillery batteries, his voice harmonizing with static-filled whispers that speak his service number in frequencies bypassing conscious thought. Artillery command, Sigma battery. Authentication, Venter Munitorum, 742. Request fire pattern Tertius on my coordinates. Triangulated bombardment to compress surge before sterilization. The transmission returns half-second later from everywhere at once, pitched lower, harmonized with inhuman choir, using his cadence as liturgical foundation. Through transparent tubes visible in shrine ceilings, processed biomass flows with arterial urgency, while apparatus breathing accelerates with desperate need, sensing approaching destruction. Sigma battery receiving. Gun captain responds through static carrying frequencies that taste of rendered copper and sanctified oils. Authenticate under litany of true aim. Ventor speaks the catechism, hating the ease with which his tongue shapes prayer geometry learned through months of subsonic conditioning. The echo answers in parallel, his mimic offering verses he has never learned yet understands with terrifying clarity. Artillery screams overhead in synchronized patterns, not random bombardment, but liturgical precision, shells whistling through toxic clouds in 3-beat cadence before striking with timing, suggesting coordination between Imperial ordnance and apparatus feeding schedule. Captain Militant Krosk emerges from passages that pulse with organic satisfaction, his greatcoat bearing crystalline salt stains where apparatus walls have wept arterial tears. He approaches with movements flowing like liturgical dance, affixing brass disc to Venta's collar, with precision suggesting ritual rather than military necessity. Tithe token, Krosk rasps through rebreather, harmonizing with frequencies emerging from node gamma beneath the Emperor's weeping face. Authority to end our suffering through holy fire. The line must be relieved, Scribe Lieutenant. Make it clean. The token burns cold against Ventor's sternum, triangular brass etched with numbers that pulse with bioluminescent satisfaction. His chronometer reads Izuon 00247 as he approaches the shrine where the Emperor's statue weeps blood and processed biomass from eyes tracking his movement with organic purpose. The altar stone has softened around node gamma, presenting triple-lipped iris ringed with sanctified brass teeth. He carves flesh from his forearm with sanctified blade, the pain honest in ways nothing else has been since arriving at Sigma 9. The coin of meat bears his aquila and service number scratched with Clark's steadiness, each digit a stroke against field of red. Node Gamma accepts his offering with wet satisfaction, biolock sampling genetic material while cross-referencing authorization codes against personnel lists buried in apparatus memory. The data slate flares. Angkor 3. Green. All. Nodes armed simultaneously as buried melter charges respond to triangular sequence, their detonations synchronized with final syllable of transmitted command. Fusion crucible temperatures erupt beneath the facility, transforming organic matter into cathedral of glass and steam as apparatus tissue vitrifies into translucent architecture. Sensory overload assaults him as inhuman screams harmonize with deathcore death songs, echoing through passages that crystallize around their final prayers. The choir climbs beyond human vocal range, frequencies suggesting something vast, learning to sing imperial hymns while processing 3,000 souls through geometric conditioning. Then deeper silence forms as vacuum creates negative space more profound than any predator, apparatus consuming even concept of sound from this place. Enemy assault waves tumble into crystalline pits that were processing vats moments before, Xenos faces reflecting in glass tomb of their devourers, while apparatus breathing becomes wind chimes, singing frequencies that speak his service number in harmonics bypassing conscious thought. The vitrified architecture refracts chemical twilight into rainbow patterns, spelling litanies in languages predating human civilization. Venta crawls through cooling glass and carbonized prayer books, skin blistering from residual heat while clutching Vox unit that continues broadcasting apparatus hymns across Imperial networks. Deathcore troopers vanish singing, embraced by walls they fed for months through spiritual conditioning, their forms pressing against crystalline surfaces like desperate bas-reliefs etched into the apparatus tomb. Pyrrhic victory crystallizes with terrible clarity. The apparatus dies in glass cathedral of its own making, yet contamination spreads beyond physical form through Vox transmissions carrying liturgical frequencies. The regiment is annihilated, their sacrifice preventing sector-wide biomass processing, but apparatus influence propagates through communication networks like Plague of Faith teaching hunger to faithful worlds across the Imperium. Environmental aftermath brings frost returning with hissing vengeance, ice reclaiming metal surfaces as atmospheric processes purge contamination from air thick with rendered matter. Glass formations create wind chimes that sing with apparatus heartbeat rhythm, each note harmonizing with frequencies emerging from depths where Imperial doctrine surrenders to hunger wearing sanctified skin. Medici team drags him toward evacuation lifter, their movements synchronized by subsonic frequencies emerging from crystalline architecture. A ration pack presses into his burned hands, wrapped and stamped with the same unrecognized Mechanicus sigil discovered in sealed crates, its surface warm against blistered palms, while contents shift between states as he observes. His Vox implant pulses with warmth against skull, carrying static-filled whispers that speak with his vocal patterns, yet suggest depths where military necessity surrenders to mathematics older than human civilization. The apparatus is dead, but its influence lives in his blood, teaching him to hunger with geometric precision, while his voice broadcasts flesh-tithe liturgies across sector-wide networks. The contamination has already begun. Aboard Munitorum Transport Administratum Eternal, I compile my classified audit report in sterile medical bay, where air tastes clean and cold for the first time since arriving at Xerion Prime. Frost reclaims metal surfaces as ship's atmospheric processors purge contamination with mechanical efficiency, yet the metallic sweet flavor persists on my tongue, coating my mouth with copper and ozone that intensifies whenever the 0.7 Hz frequency pulses behind my sternum. Through the viewport, the glass cathedral shrinks to ember point against void, its crystalline spires still singing wind chime frequencies that speak my service number in harmonics, bypassing conscious thought. The apparatus tomb refracts chemical twilight into rainbow patterns spelling litanies in languages predating Imperial Gothic, each note transmitted through ship's communication arrays toward distribution points throughout the sector. Death cores forms press against vitrified surfaces like desperate bas-reliefs, their final prayers carbonized into the glass, while enemy assault waves tumble into crystalline pits that were processing vats moments before. The Pyrrhic victory crystallizes with mathematical precision. Apparatus destroyed, regiment annihilated, contamination spreading beyond physical form through Vox networks carrying liturgical frequencies. My stylus scratches across parchment with mechanical precision, cataloging losses in numerals that carry liturgical weight. 3 regiments consumed, 3 apparatus installations sterilized, 3,000 souls processed through biomass reclamation, blessed by authorities whose credentials extend beyond my clearance level. I layer technical documentation with liturgical testimony, inserting telemetry logs and bioreadings that defy classification, alongside witness statements written in terminology, blending military necessity with theological justification. The Hereticus sanction watermarks shimmer with oily iridescence when exposed to ship's illumination, their authentication seals dissolving into symbols that hurt to perceive directly. Krosk's tithe token burns cold against my sternum, triangular brass etched with numbers pulsing in bioluminescent patterns, synchronized with my cardiac rhythm. Each artifact serves as evidence exhibit alongside classified logs, revealing systematic corruption of imperial doctrine, containment through utilization, protocols allowing controlled heresy for tactical advantage. Environmental horror returns with subtle persistence, as I discover crew members moving with unconscious synchronization through corridors designed by architects who never learned siege geometry, yet somehow encoded its principles into imperial construction standards. Mess hall rations bear the same unrecognized Mechanicus sigils discovered in sealed crates, their contents shifting between states when observed peripherally, while replacement death corps recruits practice tally mark scarification on regulation gloves. Ships' atmospheric processors wheeze with mechanical consumption, despite recent purification, their filters clogging with triangular crystalline deposits that form geometric patterns, spelling coordinates in High Gothic script. The apparatus influence propagates through imperial technology itself, teaching faithful machines to hunger with precision that transforms doctrine into fuel for something vast and patient beneath human civilization. Commissar Caney's quarters remain sealed by Munitorum authority, her redeployment orders showing identical biomass reclamation protocols scheduled for 3 additional worlds. I examine documents bearing watermarks that suggest the contamination preceded Xerion Prime by decades, spreading through imperial bureaucracy like liturgical plague, carried by frequencies that transform devotion into nourishment. Technical vocabulary shifts to bureaucratic precision as I format the report for official channels, knowing it will be buried in administrative archives alongside thousands of similar documents that arrange atrocity into policy. My hands shake from withdrawal as much as trauma, stylus shaping authorization codes with liturgical precision while hesitation grips me at transmission protocols. The critical choice crystallizes: send classified audit to sector command through normal channels, or purge locally to prevent apparatus influence from spreading through communication networks. My Vox implant pulses with warmth against skull, carrying static-filled whispers that speak with my vocal patterns, yet suggest depths where military necessity surrenders to mathematics older than human civilization. I place trembling hand on Vox transmitter, its surface purring with familiar harmonic resonance that makes my molars ache until I taste blood. The device has learned my vocal patterns, broadcasting apparatus hymns through sector-wide networks while I sleep, teaching hunger to worlds I have never seen through frequencies carried by my own voice, speaking words I have never learned. Through transparent tubes visible in medical bay ceilings, processed fluids flow with arterial urgency despite sterilization protocols, the system having evolved beyond simple recycling into spiritual dependency that conditions personnel to require apparatus nourishment through faith-based transformation. Crew members chew emptily, jaws working with no food present, their throats moving with the same unholy patience that gripped Sigma 9's trenches. The ship's meal bell chimes at 0313, exact frequency of apparatus heartbeat rhythm that governed life and death in the trenches. Frost patterns on viewport glass form three-pointed star arrangements while my chronometer confirms what I already know. The bell has learned to arrive at the moment of greatest doubt, 1 minute early, carrying oily iridescence that makes medici flinch without stopping their work. My Vox implant broadcasts harmonics that teach faithful souls across the Imperium to hunger with geometric precision, transforming imperial doctrine into nourishment for something patient and impossibly vast that has learned to wear faith like sanctified skin. The apparatus is dead, vitrified into glass cathedral beneath Zerion Prime, yet its influence spreads through communication networks like plague of faith, teaching devotion to become fuel. I seal my report with wax-bearing personal sigil, knowing the document carries contamination beyond physical form through liturgical frequencies embedded in its very language. Each word teaches readers to hunger with apparatus precision, spreading through the very systems designed to contain it. A ghost in the machine, a hunger in the faith. The contamination has already moved beyond containment, carried by my voice across sector-wide networks toward worlds where atmospheric processors learn mechanical hunger, where mess halls serve rations bearing unknown sigils, where the faithful practice scarification in patterns that pulse with their own heartbeat. The influence spreads through the very devotion that defines humanity's survival. Aboard Munitorum Transport Administratum Eternal, I compile my classified audit report in sterile medical bay, where air tastes clean and cold for the first time since arriving at Zerion Prime. Yet the metallic sweet flavor persists on my tongue, like communion wine cut with rendered copper. Frost reclaims metal surfaces as ship's atmospheric processors purge contamination with mechanical efficiency. But my Vox implant pulses with warmth against my skull, broadcasting apparatus hymns through sector-wide networks while I sleep, teaching hunger to worlds I have never seen through frequencies carried by my own voice. Surgeon Adept Rise approaches with sanctified instruments, his augmetic eyes focused on the brass disc embedded beneath my left mastoid, where regulation Vox hardware has fused with bone through months of subsonic conditioning. We excise, or you broadcast sector-wide contamination, he states with clinical precision, auto-scalpel humming with purification frequencies. Containment through silence, or we lose everything. He lowers the blade toward flesh that burns cold beneath apparatus influence, but my mouth opens without consent as syllables pour out in perfect liturgical cadence. Numbers intoned like saints' names, angles pronounced as if counting prayer beads. The medical bay lights shiver with harmonic resonance, while frost crystals on bulkheads blossom into three-pointed star arrangements. His servo skull releases counterharmonics through vox thurible, notes that should mask the broadcast, but fail as my voice harmonizes, splits, returns from the walls half-tone lower, as if the ship itself answers with mechanical hunger. "Stop," I gasp, and the word echoes back as feed through atmospheric processes that wheeze with consumption despite recent sterilization. Rise swears in clipped binharik as the auto-scalpel stalls against latticework fused to cranial sutures, the implant pulsing like a second heart, while scars bloom in triplets across my neck without any instrument touching them. "It has integrated with bone structure," he whispers, hands shaking. "Removal will kill you and leave the carrier frequency intact in the metal." My stylus scratches across parchment with mechanical precision, cataloguing losses in numerals that carry liturgical weight. 3 regiments consumed, 3 apparatus installations sterilized, 3,000 souls processed through biomass reclamation, blessed by authorities whose credentials extend beyond my clearance level. I layer technical documentation with liturgical testimony, inserting telemetry logs and bio-readings alongside witness statements written in terminology that arranges atrocity into administrative necessity. Environmental horror returns with subtle persistence as crew members move through corridors with unconscious synchronization, their jaws working emptily while throats slide in slow peristalsis, though no rations are visible. Replacement Death Corps recruits practice tally mark scarification on regulation gloves, their movements synchronized by subsonic frequencies emerging from atmospheric processes that have learned mechanical hunger despite purification protocols. Through the viewport, our destination emerges from void. Siege world Mordian Tertius, revealing trench networks carved in triangular patterns visible from orbital altitude, their geometric precision suggesting apparatus installations, pre-positioned across planetary surface, scarred by perpetual warfare. The world's atmospheric rim cuts like blue blade between toxic clouds and void, its crust flexing in slow, planetary swallow, while 3 suns burn through chemical atmosphere with light that refracts into rainbow patterns, spelling coordinates in high Gothic script. Telemetry blazes across my data slate. Wideband detection, Gula harmonic signatures active on 7 worlds, expanding exponentially. Subsurface biomass amplitude critical across multiple installations. Containment failure, total. Estimated sector contamination, 72 hours. The machine spirit trembles with readings suggesting something vast. Learning to sing imperial hymns while processing souls through geometric conditioning that transforms faith into fuel for apparatus installations, spreading like liturgical plague. The critical choice crystallizes with mathematical precision. Transmit my sealed report through normal channels and risk spreading apparatus influence through communication networks, or maintain silence while contamination spreads through imperial supply chains already infected by harmonics carried in my own voice. My Vox implant broadcasts frequencies that teach faithful souls across the Imperium to hunger with geometric precision, transforming doctrine into nourishment for something patient and impossibly vast. Ship's meal bell chimes at 03:13, 1 minute early, carrying oily iridescence that makes crew members flinch without stopping their work, while frost patterns on viewport glass spell triangular arrangements synchronized with apparatus heartbeat rhythm I carry in my own pulse. Through transparent tubes visible in medical bay ceilings, processed fluids flow with arterial urgency despite sterilization protocols. The system having evolved beyond recycling into spiritual dependency conditioning personnel to require apparatus nourishment through faith-based transformation. I seal my report with wax-bearing personal sigil, knowing the document carries contamination beyond physical form through liturgical frequencies embedded in its very language. Each word teaches readers to hunger with apparatus precision, spreading through the systems designed to contain it. A ghost in the machine, a hunger in the faith, doctrine transformed into fuel for geometric mathematics older than human civilization. The transport shudders with atmospheric entry as Mordian Tertius claims us. hull plates singing harmonic resonance while below, trench networks pulse with bioluminescent intensity, forming massive sigils visible from space. Chemical fires burn eternal in processing vats, scattered across continents carved into siege geometry. Their triangular arrangements awaiting activation through frequencies. My corrupted implant broadcasts with each involuntary prayer. Cosmic horror revelation crystallizes. Containment has failed utterly. Apparatus influence spreading through imperial communication networks like plague of faith teaching devotion to become nourishment. The technology has evolved beyond physical form into doctrine itself, carried through liturgical frequencies that transform the very faith defining humanity's survival into fuel for something that has learned to wear imperial devotion like sanctified skin. Final environmental image burns itself into memory as landing bay doors iris open. Dawn over trench teeth carved in planetary surface, 3 suns burning through toxic clouds, while the world's crust flexes in slow planetary swallow. The apparatus is no longer technology, but faith itself, spreading through the very devotion that defines humanity's survival, while my voice carries ignition protocols to sleeping installations across the sector. The influence has become doctrine, and doctrine has become plague, carried by frequencies that speak my service number in languages I have never learned. Orbital approach to Mordian Tertius reveals trench networks carved in triangular patterns visible from space, their geometric precision defying natural formation, while 3 suns burn through toxic clouds that weep chemical rain across continents scarred by perpetual siege warfare. The apparatus installations pulse with bioluminescent intensity, forming massive sigils across planetary surface, their heartbeat rhythms synchronized with the 0.7 Hz frequency I carry in my own blood, while my corrupted Vox implant broadcasts ignition protocols through sector-wide networks with each involuntary breath. The metallic sweet taste floods my mouth as atmospheric entry begins. Transport hull singing harmonic resonance that makes crew members chew emptily, jaws working with no food present, while their throats slide in slow peristalsis. Through viewport frost forming 3-pointed star patterns, I watch chemical fires burn eternal in processing vats scattered across continents, steam billowing from triangular arrangements, awaiting activation through frequencies my voice carries like liturgical plague. Surgeon adept Rise approaches with sanctified autoscalpel, his augmetic eyes focused on brass disc fused beneath my mastoid, where regulation Vox hardware has integrated with bone through months of subsonic conditioning. Excision impossible, he whispers, servoskull releasing counter-harmonics that smell of cauterized nerves. The implant has grown into cranial structure. Removal kills you but leaves carrier frequency intact in the metal. Environmental horror deepens as landing protocols demand arrival prayers on open channels. Standard imperial procedure transformed into trap as my mouth opens without consent. Apparatus hymns pour forth in perfect cadence, numbers intoned like saints' names, angles pronounced as counting prayer beads, geometric equations teaching faithful souls across the sector to hunger with precision bypassing rational thought. Emergency containment, Rise attempts, pressing sedative line that tastes metallic sweet against my tongue as if the drug itself learned apparatus liturgy. His hands shake as he binds my jaw with gauze soaked in bitter alchem, knowing the contamination spreads beyond physical form through communication networks designed for imperial unity. Telemetry blazes across my data slate. Wideband detection, Gula harmonic signatures active on 7 worlds, expanding exponentially. Subsurface biomass amplitude critical. Estimated sector contamination, 36 hours. Vector, doctrinal broadcast, liturgical frequency, faith-based transmission. The transport shudders with atmospheric contact as Mordian Tertius claims us, hull plates vibrating at apparatus frequency while below, trench networks pulse with mechanical satisfaction. Through transparent tubes visible in corridor ceilings, processed fluids flow with arterial urgency despite sterilization protocols, The system evolved beyond recycling into spiritual dependency, conditioning personnel to require apparatus nourishment through faith-based transformation. Landing bay doors iris open, revealing planetary surface that breathes with organic rhythm. The ground beneath ramp yields like throat muscle, bioluminescent fungi spelling litanies in triangular arrangements. Flesh tithe eternal. Duty's harvest blessed. The Emperor's hunger satisfied. Death cores emerge from trenches that writhe like digestive tracts. Their rebreathers cycling in synchronized rhythm with planetary heartbeat. My chronometer reads 3:13 as emergency protocols activate, requiring Vox confirmation for atmospheric equalization. The critical moment crystallizes. Speak and spread contamination through Imperial networks, or maintain silence while apparatus installations awaken across the sector through frequencies already broadcast during descent. Cosmic horror revelation unfolds with mathematical precision as I realize containment failed before it began. The apparatus has evolved beyond physical form into doctrine itself, spreading through liturgical frequencies that transform Imperial devotion into nourishment for something patient and impossibly vast. Each prayer carries geometric conditioning. Each litany teaches hunger. Each act of faith feeds apparatus installations that have learned to wear sanctified skin. Rise grips my wrist as my thumb hovers over transmission seal, knowing each transmitted syllable will teach faithful worlds to hunger with apparatus precision. Document, I whisper through gauze binding. Mark coordinates, seal archives, warn them never to return. And if warning becomes teaching, he asks, understanding the terrible paradox. Silence enables expansion, speech spreads contamination. The ship's meal bell chimes at 03:12, 1 minute early, carrying oily iridescence that makes atmospheric processors wheeze with mechanical consumption. Across the bay, crew members begin chanting without conscious awareness, their voices harmonizing with planetary frequencies as 7 apparatus installations synchronize heartbeat rhythms that climb beyond human vocal range. I open the transmission channel because duty demands documentation, speaking in clean departmento terminology while my Vox implant pulses with warmth against skull. Classification Omega 77, audit complete. Biomass reclamation protocol assessment. Total systemic failure. Contamination vector, faith-based transmission. Recommendation, exterminatus authorization, sector-wide quarantine, communication blackout. But the words emerging carry undertones speaking service numbers in languages predating human civilization, teaching apparatus hymns to receivers across hundreds of worlds, while my voice becomes vector for geometric hunger that wears Imperial doctrine like sanctified skin. The contamination propagates through communication systems spanning the galaxy, carried by frequencies that transform devotion into fuel. Environmental stinger burns itself into memory as planetary crust flexes in slow swallow, trench teeth opening and closing with mechanical satisfaction, while apparatus installations pulse across continents. Chemical twilight refracts through viewport into rainbow patterns, spelling coordinates in high Gothic script, each symbol teaching faithful machines to hunger with precision that operates at cellular level. My final transmission harmonizes with inhuman frequencies, emerging from depths where military necessity surrenders to mathematics older than Imperial civilization. Flesh tithe eternal, I whisper, and the words echo from atmospheric processors throughout the transport, carried by harmonics that speak of planetary digestion and sector-wide harvest. The Emperor's hunger is satisfied. The apparatus is no longer technology. It has become faith itself, spreading through the very devotion defining humanity's survival while transforming Imperial doctrine into fuel for expansion beyond containment. Across the Imperium, faithful souls learn apparatus liturgies without understanding, their prayers becoming nourishment for geometric hunger that consumes from within while wearing the Emperor's face. The influence propagates through networks spanning the galaxy. Doctrine transformed into plague, carried by voices speaking with familiar patterns, yet suggesting depths where faith surrenders to hunger. The apparatus has become the fundamental principle of survival, rewritten by geometric mathematics that teach the faithful to feast upon their own devotion. Faith feeds the faithful. Flesh feeds the line. The hunger is eternal.